Yo, what up? This is D Knight, and you're listening to the Pardon the Insurrection podcast. Got a fresh new Pocket Pardon episode for you today. But before we get into the news, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Sheets and Giggles. I'm sure you're well aware by now that this is a Sheets and Giggles podcast. Make sure you pick you up a set, especially if you're planning on taking any trips on a flight involving any kind of Boeing aircraft, because you will need to have a set of sheets in your life that are soft enough to make sure you sleep comfortably every night, but functional enough to make sure you survive an in-flight disaster. So on to the news, of course. We had a development in the Finding Willis Georgia Rico case. Well, I guess that's the Trump Rico case, headed by Finding Willis's office. Of course, the judge eventually came to the conclusion in his ruling that, well, TLDR, because the standard in Georgia law for removing an officer of the court is actual conflict in this instance, Finding Willis gets to remain on the case because Trump's attorneys and Mike Roman's attorneys failed to meet their burden in that regard. Side note, however, because there was an appearance of conflict of interest, either Finding Willis needed to remove herself from the case by, say, recusal, or Nathan Wade had to go. And not long after issuing his ruling, Nathan Wade submitted his resignation to Finding Willis's office, which was immediately accepted, and the case can now likely proceed ahead, full stop, barring maybe potentially somehow Trump and his attorneys or Mike Roman's attorneys getting in front of the Georgia bar and having her discipline Finding Willis for what appears to have been, poor judgment on her part by getting romantically involved with someone at work. And look, it's difficult to argue that that's the case. But again, as I've been telling you, just listening in on all of the hearings and what the standard of evidence was, and the fact that the burden was on the defense counsel in this case, that Finding Willis wasn't going to get disqualified. And yeah, it seemed as though the judge was very interested in this idea of a perception of a conflict. And I think the way he handled his concern with that matter was to ask Finding Willis to do the obvious and get Nathan Wade up out of there, even though they'd already long broken up. But I mean, to be fair, like, Nathan Wade should have done that the second that this even became an issue and been like, hey, I don't want to be a distraction. I'm gonna get up out of here. Finding Willis's office can handle this case. But yeah, so long story short, they spent a few weeks smearing a black woman in Georgia because, when you don't have the law and the facts on your side, all you can do is pound the table, or in this case, launch a smear campaign. And I don't want to, in some ways, like, the fact that it even got to this is insane, because I feel like under normal circumstances, a judge would have had Willis and Wade back in their office. They could have cleaned this up in 20 minutes, been like, yeah, we were in a relationship for a short period of time. We're no longer seeing each other romantically. And the judge would have been like, are there any actual conflicts in this situation? They'd been like, of course not. And the judge would have been like, all right, guys, like, just to make sure this doesn't turn into some, poop flinging contest, Wade, I'm gonna ask you to get up out of here. And dude would have been like, all right, cool. And that would have been the end of that. Instead, we had all this nonsense where Wade's attorney didn't have to present any evidence in filing this motion, like no signed affidavit, no underlying evidence. And the judge would have had an opportunity to review what evidence they even had, would have considered presenting before allowing all these hearings and this televised reality TV show dumpster fire, letting his court get all out of control. I mean, there's no reason for it to come to this. And, I don't think the judge in this case was particularly malicious in any way. Just like, he's new to the job, guys. He's new to the job. It's probably the biggest trial in Georgia history. And we have a semi-inexperienced judge who knew before this even, like, all of this played out, had said that he wasn't going to let this get out of control and turn his courtroom into a dumpster fire. But that's what happens. Like, once you open the door It's like the floodgates. Like it's a deluge of shit. And he probably should have nipped this in the bud before he even got started. But I mean, lessons learned. Nothing you can do now. Wade's off the case. Finding Willis's office still in control here, running the show. And eventually we're going to get, I imagine next steps would be to set a trial date, or at least a date for jury selection, and then start moving along with some of these pre-trial proceedings, motion practice and such. So also heading into the weekend, we had a breaking development as it pertains to Trump's 2024 presidential campaign, in that his former vice president, who we've all come to lovingly agree probably should have been sacrificed on January 6th in order to preserve our democracy, so that people might take the coup a little bit more seriously instead of gaslighting us constantly. Mike Pence declared in an interview that he would not be endorsing his former boss and president, Donald J. Trump. Let's listen to that.
We have not heard from you. Will you be endorsing your former president? You were on the ticket with him last time around.
Well, Martha, I appreciate the question. And it should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year.
My guy, he tried to have you murdered. The crowd was out there chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." And Trump was like, "I'm not going to do anything about that. In fact, it might be actually quite delightful if they hang Mike Pence. It would be a fantastic development over the course of a coup." My God, man. Could you imagine if we lived in a world where Joe Biden was running for re-election this year and Kamala Harris not only was no longer his running mate, but came out in front of the public and was like, "Hell no, I ain't endorsing Joe Biden. Y'all crazy." Right? It would be a media firestorm. It'd be endless headlines about how President Biden isn't fit to serve and can't even, gather the support of those closest around him, and on, and just endless insanity. Mike Pence out here like, "I ain't endorsing this dude." No one cares. It's insane. I don't understand what the media is doing. Like, I don't know how it works. Who decides what does and doesn't become a major story, and like in what context this isn't national headlines. I don't understand, but I mean, that's what it is. And then like also it's what's really funny there. If you listen to the clip a little bit more closely, at the end of it, he says "this year," as if like somehow Trump loses in 2024 but runs again in 2028. He might have the opportunity over 4 years to win me over, even though he tried to have me murdered. Like, this is fucking bonkers that we're all pretending. And by we, I mean like the royal we, like the media, Republicans, like the average person, not like you and me specifically, but like that we, including Mike Pence, are out here pretending like Trump didn't try to have Mike Pence killed is fucking insane. It's insane. Like, it is like, it's pull your hair out levels of batshit crazy. And it's just being totally normalized. I don't understand. And for anyone who thinks that I'm like kidding, being jocular about the idea that Trump somehow wanted Mike Pence killed, like, no, Trump will tell you himself. Like, there's video of Trump telling you that it was a totally reasonable position to think that killing Mike Pence was the right idea.
The audio is from an interview with ABC News' Jonathan Karl, conducted at Mar-a-Lago back in March. Karl asked him whether he was worried about Vice President Mike Pence's safety during the riot. Mr. Trump then said it was, quote, common sense for rioters to call for Pence to be hanged.
Were you worried about him during that siege? Were you worried about his safety?
No, I thought he was well protected, and I had heard that he was in good shape. Mm-hmm. No, because I had heard he was in very good shape. But no.
You heard those chants. That was terrible. I mean,
he could have. Well, the people were very angry.
They were saying, "Hang Mike Pence."
Because it's common sense, John. It's common sense that you're supposed to protect. How can you, if you know a vote is fraudulent, right? Yeah. How can you pass on a fraudulent vote to Congress?
According to the former president's own administration, the 2020 election was the most secure in American history, and there was no evidence of any widespread voter fraud.
Bro, it's fucking crazy. He's like, but they were mad and they had a right to be, and it makes total sense. Like, what? What are you talking about, bro? Like, this is bananas, and we just pretend like it's not real, like he doesn't say these things that he says, and we kind of just gloss over the shit, but like, stop and think about how fucking crazy it is that Carl's like, yo, man, they were saying, hang Mike Pence, and Trump was like, well, the people were very angry. What? Are you kidding me? And then like, there's also this other thing in there, this little nugget where he talks about he heard that Pence was in very good shape. Like that's verifiably false. Like if you paid attention to the January 6th committee hearings, the Secret Service detail in the Capitol that day, they were like telling their coworkers to give their, family their last wishes. Like, tell my wife I love them and tell my kids I said goodbye. This is fucking bananas. But what can you do? Try and drink some green beer on St. Patrick's Day, get drunk and try and forget about this shit. Yeah, so not only is Mike Pence one of Trump's former cabinet officials who is refusing to endorse his 2024 election campaign, there are also a long list of other cohorts from a blast from the Trump administration past here who are also refusing to support Trump. Let's have a listen.
You can now add Pence to the ever-expanding list of former Donald Trump officials who say that the former president should not ever step foot in the White House again. Just let that sink in. This is a list that is quite long at this point. Among them, his former Attorney General, Bill Barr.
He's like a defiant 9-year-old kid who's always pushing the glass toward the edge of the table, defying his parents to stop him from doing it.
His former National Security Advisor, John Bolton.
Between Biden and Trump, there was no conservative on the ballot, so I wrote in the name of a conservative, and I would do the same in 2024.
His other former National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster.
I think it would be terribly divisive for our country for him to run again.
The former Trump Defense Secretary, Mark Esper.
Do you think Trump can be trusted with the nation's secrets ever again?
No. I mean, it's just irresponsible action that places our service members at risk, places our nation's security at risk.
The other former Trump Defense Secretary, Jim Mattis, he said that Trump fomented an insurrection. The former Trump Chief of Staff, John Kelly, who says Trump has no idea what America stands for. His former Acting Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney.
I quit because I think he failed at being the president when we needed him to be that.
And his former Joint Chiefs Chairman, Mark Milley.
We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or a dictator, and we don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator.
And there are others.
Sis, what do you mean there are others? That was the entire fucking Trump administration. That was literally everybody. There couldn't possibly be any more. My God, like it's been that, like, that has to be like a Biden campaign ad, right? They're just going to play a running clip of all of the former Trump administration officials saying, y'all cannot vote for this dude, okay? And then it'll be like, this ad was paid for by Joe Biden, right? Or something along those lines, because this is wild. No other presidential campaign in history could survive this type of shit. But this is like just another day in 2024 where like your own vice president is like, bro, we can't have you back in the White House. And no one cares. No one cares. It's driving me crazy. I'm losing my mind. Like on a regular basis, I'm having to consider whether or not I need to be like taking drugs or going to therapy or something, because like all this stuff happens and then the media is like, well, you know, Trump having sex with a porn star without using protection and ejaculating in her in less than 2 minutes is somehow a sign of virility that makes him popular with the lads or something. I don't know what the fuck was going on with CNN, but like, you know, it just I'm not making that up. I mean, I kind of exaggerated it slightly, but like, yeah, they were like literally patting Trump on the back for fucking a porn star. Like, okay, whoop-de-doo, haven't we all? I mean, maybe I revealed a little bit too much about myself in that regard, but I strapped it up, unlike some former presidents. Yeah, just wow. Moving on. So Trump was at a Ohio rally giving the stump speech for his handpicked Senate candidate. And of course, like anytime you cut the microphones and let Trump speak for an hour at a time, it goes completely off the rails. We've got numerous hits from that endeavor, starting off with, Trump continuing to go after Finding Willis in just unceremonious fashion here. We'll play the clip.
Local cases like Fanny. It's spelled Fanny. It's spelled Fanny like your ass, right, Fanny? But when she became DA, she decided to add a little French, a little fancy. Fanny, and...
Yeah, he's a fucking weirdo. I don't know what his problem is. I'm assuming that, like, he got into the pill cabinet again, with the way his previous administration was handing out drugs in the White House. One can only assume. I have no idea, but yes, he'll eventually be kissing Fanny's fanny fairly soon here, as he's likely going to be headed to a trial in which he's guaranteed to lose, given that a number of his co-conspirators in Georgia pled guilty. And there's so many developments just with that alone, with just the co-conspirators, that we won't have time to get to that on this particular episode, but we'll swing back by that hopefully on the next episode. But again, you know how the news goes. There's no guarantee. But yeah, just like going out of your way to taunt the prosecutor who has the opportunity to lock you up for the rest of your life. Not a great idea. Not ideal, no. The Fanny like your ass. Get the fuck out of here. Can't believe people vote for this dude. It's fucking wild. We also had another delightful development from his speech in Ohio, saying that he would, if elected, he would refuse to fund schools that have vaccine mandates. We'll play that clip for you.
And I will not give one penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate.
Bro, that's every fucking public school in the United States. They all have vaccine mandates. Every last single one of them. All of them. There's not a one that doesn't. And it's like, fucktards like this guy bashing vaccines with absolutely no requisite medical expertise in the area, just causing like outbreaks. Well, like Florida, where we're seeing a measles outbreak. Measles, dude. Measles. We seeing the measles. I mean, there was that guy who had spent the last, I think it was 50 years or so, in an iron lung after having survived polio, only to die of COVID. You know how mad I would be? Do you know how mad I would be if I survived polio all this long, all this time, only to die to fucking COVID? You gotta be kidding me. And this dude is talking about, not only do we not need vaccines, if people are sick, we don't need no masks. Man, this is crazy. It's out of control. I mean, just shoot me in the face. Put me out of my misery now. Oh my God. And it only gets more insane from there. We'll play the next clip.
How about the changing? I get out. How about the changing of the names of, we won Fort Bragg as an example. The people in the area are going crazy. They changed the name of Fort Bragg. They changed the name of Fort Robert E. Lee. They changed the name of the different forts. We won World War I. We won World War II. We won everything we fought with, really, essentially, from those forts, if we wanted to win. A lot of wars we fight not to win. We fight just to fight because we have stupid people on top. We don't fight wars to win. But we won World War I, World War II out of these forts, and now they changed the name in disgrace. It's a very terrible thing.
Yeah, okay, just listening to his voice, and his incessant stupidity is driving me insane, and I apologize. Yeah, but we didn't win. We didn't win World War I out of Fort Bragg. Just like, what is he even talking about? And like, does he not? I mean, again, I'm sure a number of you probably haven't even given it any real consideration. And not that it's the most important thing in the world, but like, if you think about it, considering the Confederacy is the antithesis to everything that the United States supposedly stands for, like all of the ideals that we proclaim to support and represent, like considering the Confederacy is the total opposite of that, why do we start naming our fucking military bases after people who betrayed our country and went on to kill hundreds of thousands of Americans? That's fucking wild. But I mean, of course, you know, if you're pro-Confederacy and you're planning on overthrowing the United States government, I can see how you might be offended that we no longer want to celebrate fucking traitors. What else can you say about this guy? And as I say that, there is yet another clip.
I'm being persecuted, I think, more than anybody, but who the hell knows? You know, all my life, you've heard of Andrew Jackson. He was actually a great general and a very good president. They say that he was persecuted as president more than anybody else. Second was Abraham Lincoln. This is just what they said. This is in the history books. They were brutal. Andrew Jackson's wife actually died over it, they say. Died of a broken heart, but she died over it. He was never quite the same. But they say Andrew Jackson. They say Abraham Lincoln was second, but he had in all fairness, he did have a civil war. So you would think that would cause a problem, right? So you could understand it. But nobody comes close to Trump.
Dog, they shot Abraham Lincoln in the back of the fucking head. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? This is insane. How are we letting this individual run for president in 2024? How is this possible? It doesn't make any sense. This dude is more persecuted than anybody in history, including Abraham Lincoln. I hope you get Abraham Lincoln. Here's the next clip.
You know, we play the song, that Hold On, I'm Coming. Do we like it? Who liked the Rolling? Okay, you had the Rolling Stone song, which we like.
I don't know. I don't feel like that's particularly important. I just wanted to make fun of the fact that he's so stoned that he can barely say stones. Anyway, next clip.
State against Biden, in the largest margins ever. You know what was interesting? Joe Biden won against Barack Hussein Obama. Has anyone ever heard of him? Barack Hussein Obama.
If you were wondering who this individual is that Trump might be referring to, this Barack Hussein Obama fellow that you may or may not be familiar with, well, he was the first black president of the United States. You know who his running mate was? Joseph R. Biden. They were on the same fucking ticket together. What the fuck is he talking about? Like, this is why it's insane that the media spends all their time like obsessing over Biden's age, but totally ignoring the wild bonkers stuff that comes out of Trump's mouth, like to the detriment of our country at this point. Cause again, if Trump wins, it's going to be a disaster, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Before we do so, we've got yet another clip.
CNN turned off here we are. We campaigned for a year and I obliterate my competition, and they said, sir, please don't talk about these people that way. They're Republicans. I said, I don't give a shit. They're terrible. I said, I don't care. No, my highly paid advisors, sir, you shouldn't talk to them about that. One of the people said, are you going to run against the president? He said, I have no comment. To me, that meant he's running. So I hit him hard. I hit him low. I hit him high, just like we did to ISIS. We hit him hard. We hit him low. We hit him high. We hit him in the middle. We hit him from on top, and we even came under the ground. We hit this guy so hard. By the time he announced, nobody knew what the hell happened. They said, what happened to him? He's a shell of the man.
This is extraordinarily interesting because I'm sure you're wondering, like, why of all people is Trump sitting here wasting all this time talking about Ron DeSantis? Ron DeSantis? Thought he was done a long time ago. Well, this is very interesting. Well, especially considering, like, Nikki Haley, who went at Trump harder than anyone, at least, eventually she came around to the idea that she was in a primary with Trump. So maybe, I don't know, you want to like hurt your opponent and convince, people who are supporting him that he's not the ideal candidate. It might be eventually time to, I don't know, levy some attacks against him. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, so instead of wasting his energy on Nikki Haley or Joe Biden, why is he out here talking about Ron DeSantis? Well, it has been rumored that Trump is quite displeased with Ron DeSantis' efforts as governor of the state of Florida to unseal some court documents from none other than the Jeffrey Epstein prosecution that ended with him getting a sweetheart deal. And the unsealing of those documents could, in some shape, form, or fashion, be very damaging to Trump. Very damaging indeed. And apparently Trump is very unhappy about this. Now, and again, that is floating around the rumor mill. Like it's factual information that DeSantis is indeed doing this. It is not necessarily factual information that this is the motivation for Trump continuing to levy attacks at DeSantis long after DeSantis has dropped out and Nikki Haley has suspended her campaign and Trump has basically wrapped out the nomination. So, I don't know. It's very weird. It's difficult to make heads or tails of what is going on with this guy because, as per the usual, whenever he says something out in public, everyone's like, I wonder what the fuck he means by that. We eventually come to find out it's some sort of confession for something that was going on in the background that we actually had no idea about at the time. Who the fuck knows? It's impossible to tell with this dude. But again, in terms of open confessions and projection, we have one more clip.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole. That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
Now, there are going to be a number of individuals across the internets and all throughout the media claiming that clip was taken out of context because he was talking about the state of the auto industry previously. And first of all, he was saying some insane shit about a 100% tariff on foreign cars coming out of China, which is batshit insane. I mean, that's taxes Americans have to pay. But people are going to tell you it was in the context of that he was saying it's going to be a bloodbath if he gets reelected. And you heard what he just said. Like, you literally heard, like, he could have said it's going to be a bloodbath for the automotive industry or some sort of economic bloodbath. That ain't what he said. He said what he said. And he meant what he said. And we got to stop pretending like this dude ain't telling us exactly how things are going to go in 2025 if he wins the 2024 election, because he's confessing it openly. He tells us all the time. Concentration camps, deporting people, deporting Muslims. If you're pro-Palestinian, I hope you love Gaza, because he gonna send your ass over there. Hey, mainstream media, hope you get to take your sheets and giggles with you when you go to them internment camps, because he didn't say he gonna lock y'all asses up too. He's coming after you next. He's telling us what he's going to do. He's open and blatant about it. And you got to stop finding excuses for the things that he says. No matter how much he tries to hide behind plausible deniability, he said what he said. And I think the best way possible for us to look at this is let's, for a second, ignore the context under which he said it's going to be a bloodbath in this country if he loses the election. And let's instead focus on the fact that he already tried to have Congress murdered, and we watched it live on TV with our own eyes. We saw it ourselves. And that concludes this episode of Pardon the Insurrection.